We have been waiting for Apple to bring back Touch ID for years now, and some people even are saying that they will not upgrade to a new iPhone until Apple does so, and it seems like Apple is listening because they're still filing patents creating new technology, with one patent that was still updated just yesterday. But with that said, even though we have people like Mark Gurman and Ming-Chi Kuo saying that this is going to be coming out, a new under-display technology, I believe that this will never happen and we will never have under-display Touch ID on any iPhone, and I'll explain exactly why. Believe it or not, Apple has been working on this under-display tech since 2013 when they filed this patent that was officially granted to them in 2015. And this shows an acoustic imaging system that basically vibrates and senses your fingerprint in order to unlock it, which is crazy. Now, of course, this never came out, but a couple years after that, they started making new patents with new technology for the iPhone X. This one used an optical method with maybe a more accurate system, and they had this in the works for that in order to be able to have a better design without having that Touch ID button. But they ended up having issues with not enough yield making this possible with a company that they bought a few years back. And in the end, we know that Face ID ended up working out. They got it to work, and then they no longer had to rely on this or some of the prototypes with the Touch ID sensor being on the back as basically plan C, a failsafe. After that, you would think that Apple would stop working on this and just adopt Face ID completely, but they didn't. They got another patent on another technology that could make this possible and use the display to read your fingerprint. And with that, we kept getting rumors of new iPhones coming out with this, and I'll just fast forward and say that the iPhone 13 was tested to have under-display Touch ID with 5 different analysts leaking info with supply chain leaks showing that this is what's gonna happen, but of course we know that it did not, and the iPhone 13 did not adopt this technology. And the weird thing is, these guys are still talking about Apple working on under-display Touch ID for the iPhone 14 now, but like I said, I don't think that this is going to happen. And I believe there are 3 reasons why it won't. Now, the first one is because this keeps getting delayed and delayed, the leaks and the rumors, and of course it is fun, but after you go from year to year and it keeps getting pushed back, it is just annoying. Like I said, at first it was gonna come for the iPhone 13, we had all the info, supply chain, and then we see updates for it coming for the iPhone 14 in 2022, so that is this year, but now we have the latest release and it is getting pushed back to 2023. And as we go on, tech gets better, and this is where the second reason comes in, and that's the fact that Face ID itself is getting better. We know that Apple is updating the iPhone design with the hole punch camera, that the technology that allows Face ID to work is getting smaller. They're working on it, working underneath the display as well. And once they reach that, do they need to have an underneath the display Face ID and Touch ID at the same time? I don't think so. I think the final goal was to achieve Face ID underneath the display, or at least not have that huge notch. And I don't think that they expected it to take this long for underneath the display Touch ID to properly work. And with that, we also know that Apple wants to implement Face ID across their lineup. It's now included in iPads, and we also know that in the coming years, they are gonna add it to more iPads as well. And the same thing goes with MacBooks and potentially iMacs. We've had leaks, rumors, and basically hardware info that is gonna be coming out. We want it in the iMacs. We know that these new MacBooks have this notch, even though the actual camera portion of it is really tiny. Apple left that extra space for them to be able to put Face ID into the MacBook. Now, I wish they did out of the get-go. Maybe they're just waiting for the smaller tech to be able to work so that they won't need as much thickness and it can work in the shape, but it's quite obvious that Apple's moving forward with that. And of course, it's gonna be great to have that with your iMacs and iPads and everything else. Now, the final reason why I don't think that the under-display Touch ID is ever going to come is because of what they just released, and that is the latest version of iOS. They released the ability to finally use Face ID with a mask. Now, this part of it just blows my mind, and this is the clear reason that I think they're ditching Touch ID. We've had this situation with the pandemic and with masks for almost 2 years now, and people have been complaining about this. This has been their biggest complaint, is just that it's so inconvenient to use. Now, sure, if you think about it, we could give Apple a pass for maybe a few months, maybe even half a year, but it's been almost 2 years, and they just released this software fix to be able to allow you to do this. Now, my thought is they were working on this underneath the display fingerprint tech. We know there's new patents that were filed in 2020 as well to get the latest version to work. They're successful. They have parts. It's super accurate now as well, way more accurate than before. And we know that even in January, Apple was working on that for the iPhone 13. That way they could capitalize on this issue and give people another reason to upgrade to the iPhone 13. Of course, we have the patents, but as we know, it never happened. And in order for this to happen, it not only has to be able to work, but it has to be accurate enough in the fact that it's going to be secure and also responsive enough where it's going to work well. We know that with other under-display technologies, for example, we have OnePlus that used it, we have Samsung, they had issues. OnePlus, we were able to easily hack it, and Samsung's we did hack, but it was a lot more difficult. But then again, Samsung's, it took a lot longer to read, it was less accurate, there'd be a lot of times it would fail, and they've been slowly improving on that technology. And for Apple to adopt something, it needs to be good enough and it needs to work out of the gate. Now, of course, after that, the rumors got shifted and the reports and the parts that were designed for this, for example, the iPhone 14, and we had those reports for 2022, but now it is scrapped and pushed back for 2023, meaning the iPhone 15. And I just have a really hard time believing that they're gonna wait that long and still try to implement this. I believe that they wanted to make this work, they wanted to make it work earlier, but at this point, they are so close to making Face ID smaller for it to work better. We know that it's gonna have, the new iPhones are gonna have hole punch displays, so that whole tech is getting miniaturized, and the ultimate goal is to be able to have it be underneath the display, and Apple is also working on that tech, and I believe that that is what's going to take over, and then we are not going to need this at all. Now, I do think that they still will have Touch ID, just not under the display technology. Of course, they still are going to have budget iPads, they're going to have budget phones, and that is where having the fingerprint sensor built into the power button makes a whole lot of sense, just like on the iPad mini and the iPad Air. So hopefully that tech will still be there, and I kind of wish that Apple didn't just try to do this under the display the hard way, but they just would have built it into the iPhone's buttons. That would have been really nice and convenient, but of course we know that they gave us the software fix. Finally, they could have done it a while ago, I believe, but they didn't. And now, since they did, I believe they decided to scrap that and just keep moving forward with Face ID. But you guys let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. I want to hear your guys' opinions. Go ahead and click that circle above to subscribe to help us reach our goal of 1 million subscribers, and check out one of those great videos right over there. This has been Max, and I'll see you in the next video.